These are the solving absolute value inequality nodes. So an absolute value inequality is an inequality that contains an absolute value expression. Okay. So absolute value are the absolute bars. So the expression is like what's right here. Next thing. So yesterday we talked about solving absolute value equations where the C value had to be positive, and that's still the case here. If it's negative, it's a no solution, but with inequalities, it's a little bit different, and we'll go over that in a moment. So this little chart right here, this kind of tells you the 4 things you can solve. There's actually 6, but we're going to mainly discuss these 4. So first thing you want to do is you want to isolate the absolute value expression, right? Absolute value expression, there's nothing added or subtracted on the outside, there's nothing multiplied or divide. And then it's got to be set equal to C, and then you have one of these 4 inequality symbols. Now the C value does need to be positive. If it's negative, we'll talk about that in a moment and what you can do. Now the first 2, notice they're both less than, equal to. These are called AND statements. Okay, those are AND statements. The second set, when you isolate it and it's greater or greater than equal to, those are called OR statements. So we have AND or statements, okay? Now AND statements, notice they're connected compound inequalities. I call those betweens. The OR statements split apart, okay? Now this little table is great and all. I'm actually gonna show you what I use. So several years ago, a student came up with this. It wasn't me, actually a pre-AP student came up with this, so it was pretty cool. So what they did was this. What they realized, they saw a pattern. So whenever they saw the less than sign, okay, to do this trick, the inequality sign, the absolute value expression has to be on the left side. So what they noticed is when anytime there's a less than symbol, they could write the word between, right? B-E-T-W-E-E-N, between, right? And they knew that a between statement was from one circle to another. And then they wrote their expression as negative C is less than the absolute value expression, which is less than positive C. Okay. So once again, they saw the less than sign. They made an E and they made the word between, which let them know that it was between 2 numbers, less than negative or greater than negative C, but less than positive C. So you remember yesterday how we talked about the absolute value expression has to equal negative C and the absolute value expression has to equal positive C. It's the same concept, right? Except you put negative C on the left, positive C on the right.
Does it matter if you put like the lines for the absolute value?
Once you write it in this form, you should drop the absolute bars. Now, the second thing this kid came up with was the greater than. So with the greater than, they noticed that every time they did a greater than, that the graph split apart. So he came up with the phrase split. And if you think of a split apart, what do you think about? They go away from each other, right? So that means your left side and right side would split apart from each other. So how do you write this algebraically? Well, the absolute value expression without the absolute bars is less than negative C, or the absolute value expression is greater than positive C. Okay. And once again, if it's less than negative C, it goes to the left. Greater than positive C, it goes to the right, and that creates the split in the graph. And you'll see how this works in a sec. It's actually very easy to use. If you don't like what I'm going to show you here, you are always more than welcome to use the AND or statements. It's the same thing.
So it can be less than negative C, right? But how is an absolute value expression less than a negative?
Well, the absolute value bars have already been dropped here, right? There is no, this is just an expression less than negative C, not the absolute value. So once you drop those, then negative C is fine. All right, so let's go to the first example. And I'll refer back to this several times. So this first one here, we have y plus 2, the absolute value of that is less than 8. So first thing you need to check, is your absolute value expression isolated, yes or no? Yeah. Yes, it is, right? There's nothing adding or subtracting, there's nothing multiplying. Now we're gonna check the C value. Is the C value positive? Yeah. Yes. Now we're gonna look at the inequality sign. Would you agree less than, is that gonna be a between or a split? Right, and I can literally draw a little E, so I know it's a between. Because it's a between, this is gonna be my C value right here. And the notation, you gotta kind of memorize this. So negative C comes first. So what should come first?
Negative 8.
Negative 8, right? C is 8, so it's gonna be negative 8. less than the expression without the absolute bar. So what's the expression? Which is less than positive C. So what's positive C? 8. Now remember, these inequality signs, they can have equal bars, but that's just dependent on the original inequality. Okay. Now this is the one thing that's a little bit different with this. We want to isolate y, because that's always our goal, is to isolate the variable. So we have a plus 2 right here. So how do you undo plus 2 so that you isolate the y? You subtract 2, right? Now usually when you subtract 2, you only subtract it from itself and whatever's on the right side usually, right? But what do you notice? There's actually a left and a right side you have to do it to. So we're going to subtract 2 from the middle. We're going to subtract 2 from the right side, but we're also going to subtract 2 from the left side. So we're going to subtract it from all 3 parts. But the cool thing about this, it's less steps. So can somebody tell me what that simplifies to after we subtract 8? And now it's done. It's isolated. So now we have our between statement. Negative 10 is less than, y is less than 6. Now, these ones you actually do have to graph. Now, you'll notice my number line, there's no way I can fit negative 10 and positive 6 here. I'm not really concerned with that. Draw a circle, draw another circle. The distance between them doesn't bother me. What matters is the order of the numbers. Which number should come first? Which number should come second? 6. Now, if you're using the split in between, we said this is a between statement. So where do you think I should be shading? Between. There you go. One last thing I'll point out. How did I know not to fill these circles in?
They didn't have a line.
Yes, there was no equal bar, so these should both be open circles. Any questions on that? So that's your between statement. Okay, so once again, make sure you isolate the absolute value expression. Look at your value of C, is it positive? And then look at your inequality sign. All right, let's take a look at number 2. So same questions. Is the absolute value expression isolated? Yes, it is, right? There's nothing added, subtracted outside, nothing multiplying. Is my C value positive?
Yes.
Yes. So look at your inequality sign. It is greater than. Is that a split or a between? We haven't got there. We'll get there in a second. Okay, so it is a split, right? Because we can make the letter P out of it. So this is the one where you will have to refer back to this several times. So I start with the expression is less than negative C. So the expression is Q over 3, which is going to be less than negative C. So if this is C, what am I going to write here?
Negative 2.
Good. So Q divided by 3 is less than negative 2. Or the second part, the expression, but it's greater than positive C. So Q divided by 3 is greater than positive 2. So take a look at that. Let me know if you have any questions on that. And you will have to go about solving it. So how would you solve this? Anybody just raise your hand, let me know. Okay, we're going to multiply this side by 3 and this side by 3. Okay, if you're dividing by 3, you undo it by multiplying. So 3 divided by 3 reduces to 1, so we don't need it, so we have a Q. Less than, what is negative 2 times 3? Negative 6. Okay. Now, you solve one side, now you're going to solve the other. Or, and the way you solve the right side should be pretty much the exact same way you solve the left side. So again, I'm going to multiply both sides by what? 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, so we have Q is greater than what number? 6. So I'm going to draw my circles. Should they be open or should they be closed?
Open.
Open. What number comes first?
Negative 6.
Second number?
6.
Since it's a split, what should I do? How should I graph them?
Opposite side.
Opposite ways, opposite directions. All right, so take a look at it. Let me know if you have any questions. Questions on this? Yes.
So Q would be the A and
Say it louder.
Q would be the A and 3 would be the B.
Oh, yeah, AX plus B just is generic. Like it's just an expression, like in slope-intercept form. But yeah, it's just generic. Like nothing really represents A and B. Like the Q, if anything, would represent the X. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Okay. Now, first question. Can I go straight to solving this? Why not? You have to reorganize it. So what should I do first? It's minus the 10. We're going to subtract the 10 first. So whenever you're solving these or isolating the absolute value expression, you want to isolate the absolute value expression. So we're going to subtract 10 first. So 3 times the absolute value of 2a plus 5 is less than or equal to 27. What should I do next? Divide by 3. And it's at this point where I can actually decide what I need to do. Okay, my expression is isolated. My C value, positive or negative? It's positive, okay? So, is it a split or is it a between? It's a between. We can draw the letter E, so that'll be a between. Now, I know it's going to be a between, so I'm going to draw it like this. Bless you. What goes on the left side? Negative 9. So this is going to be negative C, which is negative 9. What goes in the middle? 2a plus 5. And what goes on the right side? Positive 9. There you go. So negative C less than the absolute value expression without the absolute bars, less than positive C. All right, how would you go about solving this?
Minus 5.
Okay, so right here, we want to first start by subtracting 5. We're going to subtract it from the middle, the right, and where else? The left, right? We're subtracting it from all parts. So we have negative 14 is less than or equal to 2a is less than or equal to 4.
And divide everything by 2.
And now we divide everything by 2. Okay, let's take a look at that. So now we come up with negative 7 is less than or equal to a, which is less than or equal to 2. Is that correct? Okay. So I draw my circles up here. Let's do this in blue. Are the circles open or closed? Closed. Why are they closed? Because equal to. What's my first number? And my second number?
2.
All right. Do I connect them or split them? All right. So now we get to the part where people have questions. What do you do when it's negative, right? Okay. So for this first negative one here, first off, is the absolute value expression isolated? Yes. But what's wrong with the C value? It's negative. Now, when you solved it, if you saw a negative number, automatically you said no solution. That's not the case here. The symbol actually dictates whether it's a no solution or not, because there's actually 2 answers for this one now. If it is less than, your answer is no solution. And let's talk about the reasoning behind that, because actually this is kind of important, and hopefully this allows you to make the connection between no solution and the other one. So here's my x-axis. And if you were to transform this graph, it would move to the right quite a bit, right? So it doesn't really matter where the y-axis, I'll draw the y-axis, but whatever, it doesn't matter. So when you transform this, this moves to the right very far away. So it looks something like this. Y'all good with that? Okay. Now, if I were to graph this line, -2, so y equals -2, where is that located? Below the x-axis, so about right here? Would y'all agree? Okay. So really, when you're solving these inequalities, it's asking you, in relation to this line, where is the graph? So my question to you, this expression is the absolute value expression, the purple line, right? This -2 is the red line. So this question says less than. So the question says, where is this purple graph less than below the red line? So where does this purple graph fall below the red line? It doesn't, right? And that's why you have no solution. Yes, sir.
And what if it was
But if it was greater than, that's a great question. So what happens, so let's write this down. What happens if it was like this? Ooh. What would be the answer if I asked you this? Because it's a negative number, but now it's a greater than sign. So the question again says, we have this purple graph and we have this line at -2, but it's greater than. Greater than is above. Do y'all agree? So where is this purple graph above the red line? Infinite, right? If you trace it to the left going on forever, it's always above the red line. If you go to the right, it's always above the red line. Do y'all agree with that? So if it's less than, it's a no solution. Greater than is going to be all real numbers. You do need to know that. So less than a negative number, no solution. Greater than a negative number, all real numbers.
Does it matter if it has like a equal to sign? Would that change it?
In terms of this, no, it wouldn't really change it.
does like IMS still work?
No, let's go with all real numbers.
Kind of other.
Yeah, yes.
What if the graph is like one of the like squiggly ones where like it can go down?
Well, since this is an absolute value, that wouldn't happen, right? Because the absolute value, wait, say that one more time.
Like there's like some transformations. Like
Oh, they move it up and down and stuff like that? Is that what you're talking about?
Like one end will be like infinity, like negative, and then one will be infinity, like or like one will be going down.
Oh, so you're talking about like domain and range type thing?
I don't know.
It's not absolute value.
Yeah, so absolute value, but you're right. The domain will always be all real numbers, but it really, when we're solving these problems, what you're really supposed to look at is the graph and what's happening between the graph and the line. You can ask me that after class. All right, let's keep going. Now, the rest of them will be pretty easy until we get to one other problem. Okay, so this one right here. The absolute value of y minus 3 is less than or equal to 4. So the first question, is the absolute value expression isolated?
Yes.
Is the c value positive?
Yes.
So now we look at the inequality. Is it a split or a between? It's a between. So raise your hand if you can tell me how to write this. You might refer back to the very first slide. Okay. Good. So -4 is less than or equal to y minus 3, which is less than or equal to 4. Good job. Now, from here, how do I isolate the y? Somebody else raise your hand. Add 3 to both sides in the middle. So we're going to add 3 here, add it to the right, and add it to the left. Yeah. So -4 plus 3 is -1. Less than or equal to y. Less than or equal to 4 plus 3 is 7. And we're done. Draw my graph.
So once y is from the variables alone, we can put it on the line.
Yes, once the variable is isolated, it's solved, and you can graph. -1 comes first, 7 comes second. Should those circles be open or closed? Okay. And should I connect them or split them apart? All right, question?
So when if there's an equal bar, it's always gonna have both are always gonna be closed.
Correct.
Both don't have an equal bar, then it'll always be open.
Both, yes.
So is on the next one, is it gonna be 1 point? Or is it gonna be like negative infinity?
Are you talking about this one?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll get there right now. Take a look. Okay,
The answer.
go ahead and tell me what to do first. You have to add 4, right? We have to add 4 because it's not isolated.
Oh.
So I think that might change things a little bit. Okay, so once we add the 4, we have the absolute value of 3 plus r is less than 4. Okay, at this point here, it's isolated. The 4 is positive. What is it? Is it a splitter or between? It's a between. And tell me how to set it up.
-4 is less than 3 plus r is less than 4.
Okay. can anybody tell me what's the next step I do in taking to solve? Right here? -3 from all sides and the middle. So, -4 minus 3 is -7, less than r, less than 1. And it's done.
Did you do that on purpose? Having them opposites? No, -1 and 7 and -7 and 1.
Did I do this on purpose?
Yeah.
Obviously.
Obviously not, look at them. The equation or what?
The equation above is -1 and 7, and then the next equation is -7 and 1. Right?
Oh, yeah, that's coincidence.
Yeah.
But I mean, it makes sense since I'm using 3 and 4. Yeah,
I'm so confused.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even realize I did that. Thought you were trying to call me out. I was like, hey, I'm just trying to solve the problem here. All right, take a look at it. Let me know if you have any questions on that so far.
Is this it?
No, we're not done. We're almost done. We only have like 4 more, but one of them is pretty quick. Actually, 2 of them are pretty quick. All right, looks like most people are done. All right, let's take a look at the next ones here. Okay, so this one right here, I can't just go into the answer. What do I need to do first? Subtract the 8s. Why is it a split?
It's greater than.
There you go. So it's a split. So how do I write this? This is the one you got to practice on. How do I write it?
Don't you have to split put like negative 9
4x minus 7 is what?
equals to -9, then you can say thing opposite.
All right, less than or equal to -9.
Yeah.
Or 4x minus 7 is what?
Percent.
Greater than or equal to
9.
positive 9. Okay. So from here, we solve them. So we add 7 on both sides. So 4x is less than or equal to -2. What's the next step? Divide both sides by 4. And x is less than or equal to -1/2, which is -1/2. Now on the same side, you should be doing the exact same process. Add 7. 4x is greater than or equal to 16. Divide both sides by 4. X is greater than or equal to 4. Open or close circles? What number goes first? On the right? 4. Do I connect them or split them? Okay, so I'm going to work out these last two really quickly. So I'm going to just solve them. So there's a 14 here, so I subtract it. Does anybody know what to do next, just by curious? Divide by 6. So 3 minus k, the absolute value of that is greater than 0. Is that a split or a between? It's a split. All right, so this one's a little bit different, so kind of pay attention to what I'm doing here. So the first one's going to be 3 minus k is less than 0, right? There's no negative 0, it's just 0. Agreed? Or 3 minus k is greater than 0. Because there's no negative and positive 0, it's just 0, it's neutral. So how would I go about solving this? Opposite. Subtract 3 from both sides. Now this is where it's going to change a little bit. Because my question to you, is the k isolated? Okay, it's not. It has a negative. So what do I need to do? Now, if you recall from previously, when you divide by a negative number, what are you supposed to do? Flip the symbol, right? So now it says k is greater than 3. Questions on that? So if you recall, whenever you divide by a negative number or multiply by a negative number, the inequality sign flips. The other thing, I'm going to solve it on the other side. And I'm going to do the exact same thing.
Only the flip,
So the negative number always flips this.
If you multiply or divide by a negative number at the very end, the inequality sign does flip. Or this time k is now less than 3.
Wait, so the number ended with the always flips?
Well, no, this flipped because the negative divided by negative is positive.
Okay.
Okay. Now, yes.
I was gonna ask, how come, it isn't alone if it's negative?
Say it louder.
How come it isn't alone if it's negative?
How come it's not alone?
Yeah.
Because it's not wrong.
How come it's
Because
not?
negative is like -1.
Yeah, oh yeah, a negative is like -1 times k. So you can actually like, negative k is equivalent to -1 times k. So that's why you're dividing by -1.
so wouldn't this be?
Okay, so now, would you agree it's the same number?
Yes.
But there's no equal bars. So when I draw it, it's an open circle. Now take a look. K is greater than 3. Where do I shade?
To the right and left.
K is less than 3 to the left. So really, your answer is the whole number line
Numbers besides.
except for
Besides
3. That's it. Now, number 9 should go pretty quickly here. It's isolated. The number is negative, but it says greater than. What does that mean?
It's all real numbers.
All real numbers. And when you graph it, the whole number line.
What's that like sign for all real numbers like that?
The 2 lines
And
It's not all real.
and the R. All real numbers. All right, I'm gonna try to get to this last one as quickly as possible because. So the absolute deviation of a number x from a given value is the absolute value of the difference of x and the given value. So this is how you find absolute deviation, the absolute value of x minus the given value. So I'm just gonna show you real quickly how this works. So at a certain company, the average starting salary S for a new worker is $25,000. That right there is the given value.
We need to put
Yeah.
up your paper.
Oh, sorry, thank you. All right, the actual salary has an absolute deviation of, at most, $1,800. Write in solvent inequality to find the range of the starting salaries. Okay, so this is the formula they give me. So the absolute value of X minus, what was the given value? 25,000. At most. What inequality sign is that?
Less than or equal.
Less than or equal to, and what is it less than or equal to? 1,800. All right. So that's the equation you'd have to come up with. Now, it says to solve it. So I'm asking you, is it a split or between? It's a between, right? So we're gonna have less than or equal to expression in the middle. What goes on the left side? On the right side? All right. I know I'm going to add 25,000 to all three. So in the middle we have X. On the right side, 1,800 plus 25,000 is 26,800. On the left side, if you subtract 1,800, I want to say that is 23,200. So those are the range of starting value salaries for a new employee. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel.